Up to 500,000 public sector workers are walking out from their jobs today. That includes teachers and train drivers and civil servants, all taking a stand against their pay and working conditions. They
say the government are to blame for today's mass walkout. So let's speak to a government minister. The Education Secretary Gillian Keegan joins us from Westminster. Very good morning to you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
What do you say to parents who might support teachers and agree with them? It's your fault today means their school is closed.
Well, I think what I'd say to parents is we're trying our very best to do two things. One is to make sure that we have a world-class education for children, and that means we need to recruit and retain the best teachers. So I'm very much alive to that. But we also need to make sure that we don't fuel inflation. And one of the things we've been very focused on is to say that we're going to halve inflation this year. We need to get rid of the impact of inflation for everybody in the economy, not just pay, inflation-busting pay rises to some sectors of the economy. And we've been very clear about that. But that doesn't mean that I'm not very much focused on making sure we can recruit the best graduates into teaching, we retain teachers, and we also work on things that irritate teachers like workload and bureaucracy and some lack of flexibility. I'm very much open to talking about that and supporting our teachers.
But what are you prepared to talk about now with teachers? Because we spoke to the Education Union earlier, who said that the next strike day is going to come this month, just in a couple of weeks' time. What are you going to do to stop it?
Well, we had meetings on Monday, and they basically said on Monday, look, there's nothing you can do to stop this strike on Wednesday, but we have 28 days between the two strike days, so we will be having more meetings. And it was quite a constructive meeting, but I've been very clear, we cannot go, with these inflation-busting wage increases. It makes no sense to everybody else across the economy. And we know why inflation's there, right? It's the war in Ukraine, it's the economic hangover from the pandemic, and every government around the world is struggling with it. So we know that's the case. And we need to halve inflation. That's the promise we've made to the country. But what I have said is we'll look at future pay, we'll look at recruitment and retention challenges, we'll look at workload, we'll look at what we can do to improve,
so
we'll look at special educational needs and more support for special educational needs.
All very positive. Yesterday, we saw food prices go up again. And it is not enough for teachers that you say we're going to talk about future pay, because the problem is teachers can't afford prices right now. So are you ruling out, let's just establish, they're going on strike for money right now. Are you ruling out a deal for this year, this pay year?
So let's just get the facts out there. The average classroom teacher is on £39,500. The independent pay review body came back with figures higher than we'd put in and higher than schools had budgeted, which is 5% for experienced teachers and an 8.9% rise for newer teachers. On top of that, 40% of classroom teachers, because they get progression within the pay bands, will get up to a 15.9% increase this year. And that is on top of a very generous pension contribution, which is 23.6%.
So what your answer seems to be is you're ruling out any other deal for now. You're prepared to talk about pay for the next round, but you're ruling out a deal for this pay year, any increase.
We can't simply, what they want and what they've asked for, and they, all of the public sector workers, all the workers that are on strike have got one thing in common. They want inflation or inflation-busting pay increases. And that would be the wrong thing to do. It would be irresponsible to do, because it would bake in inflation for longer. It would make everybody poorer for longer. We have to tackle the problem. But in terms of teacher recruitment, teacher retention and making sure we have the best teachers motivated to provide a world-class education, I'm completely
Let's come back to the tactics of this confrontation, because confrontation it is, and it seems to observers, it seems to the public, it seems to the broad media that we are in a complete impasse here, because you are making your case and you've talked about inflation for about 2/3 of this interview. All ministers who are representing areas where these strikes are happening, that's the first thing they talk about, inflation. We are not prepared to see inflation go up. We want to halve inflation. And you see the union saying we want an inflation-busting deal. That is trench warfare. That is a complete digging in on both sides. So the impression that we're left with is this is going to go on and on and on, because we can't see... Susanna's asked you several questions about compromise and maybe you can make a move forward, and there doesn't seem to be any movement. You seem to be completely dug in.
Well, no, not at all. I said, you know, we'll look at future pay. Last Friday, by the way, we were supposed to put in our submission for this round of pay discussions, which are happening now, which would be happening now, or the independent pay review body would be looking at that. And we didn't put those in because we wanted to keep, you know, a bit of space to be able to have those discussions. But when you've got somebody across the table that is just asking for something which is unreasonable and we can't do, you have to get people to move from that. Now, I'm hoping they will move from that. But I just want to say something else, Richard, which I think is important. My very first day in the job, I got a letter from all the unions, which was, we want more money to fund this pay rise and also take away inflationary pressures from school budgets. £2 billion. Now, the autumn statement was difficult economic times, but we got that £2 billion next year and the year after. The unions put up on their website, we've won, our campaign has won. The unions' campaign then moved to inflationary pay rises. I said, that's unreasonable, it's not going to happen. Now we're talking about recruitment and retention. We need it because of retention challenges. I'm willing to talk about that, but not in the terms of everybody's got the same retention challenges. The retention challenges are, the recruitment challenges are more specifically secondary school for certain subjects, maths, physics, computer science.
I want to hurry you because
I'm trying to fix on.
I'm sorry to hurry you, but we've very short of time this morning. I want to ask you one very quick question, quick answer, please. I make the analogy of trench warfare. There are 40,000 more troops against you in one of the trade unions. They've joined in the last 2 weeks. Mass mobilisation. That doesn't sound as if there's going to be any retreat.
You know, one thing that we all have in common is none of us want to cause more disruption to our children's education. They have been through enough in the pandemic. Our teachers are working really hard to get them to catch up. We've got exam cohorts taking GCSEs this year. They have suffered enough, and all of us are really focused on making sure that children are not disrupted anymore. That's why a lot of head teachers, and I say a massive thank you to all of the school leaders and head teachers who are working really hard to keep the majority of our schools open for as many children as possible. That's what we need to do. But, you know, I don't believe that, as you've characterised it, there's only one union, one teachers' union that's gone on strike. Yes, they have more members, but there's one teachers' union, and not all of that union voted to go on strike. Actually, less than half of them at the time voted to go on strike.
Well, they didn't join the union not to go on strike.
No, and so those will be from the other union who would have, you know, voted but didn't get past the threshold. That's clear. But, you know, I am constructive. I've worked for many, many years solving recruitment and retention challenges in many different industries, and I'm determined to do that, to make sure that we have the best education system for our children.
Good luck with that. Thank you.